Hello class, in this video I'll be showing you how the chain rule can be applied to find the derivative of a composition of two functions. Let's begin. What does a composition of two functions look like? So what I've done is I've provided two functions. The first one is f of x is equal to x cubed. The second one is g of x is equal to 5x squared plus 7. To write the composition of two functions, I can do it two ways. I can take f and compose it with g of x, which is read f of g of x. Or I can take g of x and compose it with f. And this is read as g of f of x. And I'll start by composing f of g of x. So what does this mean? Well, this means that in the function f of x, I'm going to substitute g of x in for every x. And that's going to look like this. Like such. Notice the g of x replaced the x in the function f of x. Next, I'm going to substitute 5x squared plus 7 in for g of x. And the expression that I'm about to box is f of g of x. Well, what happens if we go in reverse? What happens if we do g of f of x? So in the function g, I'm going to substitute f of x for every x in the function. So that would look like this. And what is f of x equal to? Well, that is equal to x cubed. And that can be simplified further, but I'm not going to at the moment. I'm going to leave it just like that. So the function that I just boxed is g of f of x. Now let's say we wanted to take the derivative of these functions. How would you do that? Well, we're going to apply what's called the chain rule. And I'm going to apply the chain rule without describing what it is first, and I'd like to see if you can figure out what I did. Okay, so if I wanted to find the derivative of the quantity 5x squared plus 7 all cubed, it would look like the following. So go ahead and take a moment to figure out how I did that. Okay, I'm not going to do the bottom example because that's a poor example of the chain rule, but maybe you have an idea how I figured out the derivative of 5x squared plus 7 all raised to the third power. And now that I've done the example, I'm going to show you the general rule. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to let f and g be functions. The composite function, or composition, of g and f is the function whose values are given by g of f of x for all x in the domain of f, such that f of x is in the domain of g. Okay, so the chain rule can be represented in many different ways. but we're only going to talk about two in this class. The first way to represent the chain rule is by using function notation. So it says if h of x is equal to f of g of x, then the derivative is the following. It is the composition of the derivative of f with g times the derivative of g. There's another way of explaining the chain rule. It says if y is equal to f of u and u is equal to g of x, then the derivative of y with respect to x is equal to the following. That'll be dy du times du dx, where du does not equal 0, or the change in u does not equal 0. So going back to the previous example, notice that this right here is the composition of the derivative of f and g of x. Because notice that the derivative of f is 3x squared. Then over on the left, 10x, that is the derivative of g. So if you figured that out before you saw the rule, then good for you. If not, that's okay too. We're just learning.